We will now move to the penultimate session of the day. This is the second of the Ignite talks. Um, this session is going to be by Sunil Govindan, Engineering Manager, Cloudera, and he speaks on Spark on Kubernetes challenges in storage and compute layers. Sunil, you can ready?
Cool. Hi,
Hi.
Amit.
Yes, Sunil,
So
I
you
can
can
see
see my
you, and
screen?
we can see your screen, and if you can start presenting, we are able to see your presentation. Over to you, Sunil.
Cool. Yeah. Thanks, Anvit, and thanks out of introduction for the talk. So my name is Sunil Govindan. So I work at Cloudera. So today's session I'll be covering the challenges in storage and compute layer for running Spark on Kubernetes. I work at Cloudera, and I majorly contribute to various open source projects like Apache Hadoop, Submarine, and Unicorn. Cool. So let's look at the agenda. It's a very quick talk. So I'll covering majorly why Spark on Kubernetes and the challenges in the compute layer, challenges in the storage layer, and what are some of the proposals for that. Okay. So let me quickly go to Spark on Kubernetes. So if you see in the past 10 years how the big data ecosystem got evolved, like we mostly all of them were either monolithic, and there are a lot of bad jobs running because most of them were ETLs, and it's basically was a massive cluster of 2000 node to 5000 node, and where you need to manage with a cluster admin and running your job, doing the end-to-end resource management. But over the course of the time, we can see that right now it's mostly cloud native, even serverless, right? And containerization became very popular. By looking at all these, the present and the future is actually very clear that this direction we are going towards from a monolith to microservice model and also cloud native. So in this context, especially for big data workloads, Kubernetes actually can offer a lot into the cloud native aspects and containerization and a possible A and AML options as well. And more than that, the industry has already started to move the various batch workloads to Kubernetes. So now the Kubernetes is very clear that, and that is a de facto standard as a resource orchestrator for cloud and as well as in on-prem now. So why do we need to choose Kubernetes to run the Spark workloads, right? So for Spark, it is very clear that we need to run different types of Spark workloads, Spark versions, and also the packages are dependencies are different. So it was very difficult in the past time when it was running in a normal mode to resolve these dependencies. So containerization of Spark is actually very powerful, and so that it can support multiple Spark version. And more than that, they need to get this fine-grained access also. So Kubernetes actually is a very strong platform where Spark can run and actually can utilize a lot of underneath power from that. So it is very obvious that Kubernetes can actually is a good choice to run Spark because of the entire infrastructure advantages. However, there's a lot of gaps in the compute layer. So right now, I'll just take some of the challenges what we are seeing in the compute layer for the to run Spark on Kubernetes. Uh, so when you look into higher level, Spark as a big data engine, uh, it actually lacks, it requires certain first class application concept, and also how to divide the capacity in a fine grained manner, and also how to ensure that there's fairness across the Spark jobs, that those are the big data jobs, right? And how to ensure that because these Spark jobs is not running 5 or 10 workloads, they'll be running in 10,000 or 20,000 pods at a given point of time, and it will be coming up doing some ETL transforms or something similar to that, and goes down. So it requires a lot of throughput and better scheduling latency as well. So many of the things actually were lacking actually at this point of time in Kubernetes scheduler. And these are some of the fine-grained requirements we look into what Spark really needed, right? So it requires certain ordering of the Spark jobs and priorities needed, fairness, or also this looks for a Gantt scheduling model, because these are all scheduling related gaps. And more than that, but if you have 1,000 nodes in a cluster, you need to literally make use of the entire resource as well. So that is also at this point of time seems like missing there. So we came up with an independent scheduler called Unicorn, Apache Unicorn. This is actually incubating at this point of time. So this is a independent scheduler which is actually pretty much tuned for Kubernetes, and it actually takes the complete big data or batch aspects to the Kubernetes ecosystem, because the Kubernetes default scheduler does not have the first class concept of supporting batch jobs. So this was one of the reasons why this particular project started. And in this project, like it can actually very well do the job ordering, job fairness, hierarchical queues. So all these kind of concepts are possible, and also can scheduling. So with this, Unicorn actually can very well support almost all these kind of different uh, demands coming from different types of Spark workloads of different users, and um, all the types of like let it be BA query or an ETL. Unicorn actually could actually tune itself, and the admin can tune Unicorn in such a way that this particular use case can be met. We did a quick comparison among the Unicorn with the default scheduler, and especially on application concepts, job ordering, resource fairness, and the fine-grained resource management, and also the scale and performance as well. So around, based on our test, we found around 150% of performance improvements are there when you run with Unicorn. So that's why we just put a comparison where we are and what it helps. More than that, it need to be compatible, right? So Kubernetes has all this kind of supports of predicates like not selecting taints and toleration, the persistent volume claim, and this is where I think I'll be coming in the storage layer a bit more. And it also need to work with the cluster autoscaler and all the different kind of management commands as well. So it is compatible 100%. So it won't be, there won't be any kind of a problem when you switch from default to Unicorn to support these kind of batch workloads running. From the community level, if you look, various companies like Lyft, Cloudera, Alibaba, all of them actually started using Unicorn, and these are some of the testimony from them, how they are using it. Most of them are actually using it either in production or in a testing environment, and these are all running massive amount of jobs every day in a bigger cluster. So this is some of the live testimony and how they're using, and which is actually happening. And a lot of other companies also adapted Unicorn to run their batch workloads, that is including Spark. Right, so that is where I think I just want to be on the compute side. There was a lot of gaps in the scheduling side, which and a proposal is basically to run Unicorn there. So by which we can mostly address all the important gaps which are there, and to run this Spark workload on Kubernetes very effectively, right? So since most of the big data, when we say it's majority of this people are actually using Spark, and they're all migrating from Spark on Yarn or Spark on Mesos and coming to the Kubernetes landscape and losing this particular capabilities which they were having, and suddenly when they come to Kubernetes, actually that's a massive problem, and it impacts adoption. So that's where I think it is very critical. Now coming to the storage layer, so this is what we saw in the compute, and for storage, there are multiple challenges as well. So one of the major challenges, like if you know Spark, there's a concept called shuffle handler, and it is very tuned for Yarn's big data Hadoop Yarn, where they have an external service. We can do that, but in Spark, it is not possible when you run in Kubernetes. So it's a big challenge. A community itself is trying to solve the problem. Another problem is like if any of the Spark workloads or the, big data workloads running on Kubernetes want to use persistent volumes, they need to rely on certain providers like Ceph or Portworx and etc. So how can you manage all these things together? And these workloads, right, often when you run in cloud, they need to take this data from various cloud storage like S3, ADFS, GFS for their data input and output. So is there a standard way? And these workloads need not have to worry about different types of IAM policies or all these kind of concepts here. So let's look into the first on-prem. Some of the obvious choice for persistent volume support is Root Ceph, Portworx, and OCS at OpenShift, and many are there. And it's very difficult actually to maintain these different types of storage data. So I'm going to pose a few questions actually from the perspective of an end user and also from a cluster admin of Kubernetes. As an end user, actually, he need to literally choose a storage class. Is a Ceph or a Portworx or any other one for each of the deployment. That means each of the Spark job, he need to think through that. And also, how can he know that which storage is better, and is it in terms of performance or some other part, right? And maybe some of them actually may be good for archival storage or cold storage, and some of them may be faster for some faster performance access, and some may cost him more money actually, right? Because some may be licensed as well. So it's very complicated actually to choose, and it's not that easy for them. And another one, with the perspective of a cluster admin, to install and upgrade these different types of storage types, it's not that easy as well. And also, if they want to migrate from one of the storage to another one, again, it's very difficult, and a lot of manual involvements are needed. And is there any good governance or lineage information available for these storage types? That's also a question, because some of them are open source and not much good information are available there. So that's actually in the on-prem side. And coming to the cloud side.
We are in the last minute, so I would request you to
Yeah,
please
nice.
quickly
Yeah.
state it.
So the cloud side, we have actually S3 and a BFS and GFS actually need to be for the IO requirements, and it's very difficult actually to get a uniform API. So a proposal actually we were discussing with many other folks in the Soda layer, this is especially for multi-cloud. So can we actually each of the Spark jobs, can they use it, the storage connector it has, can it actually access these file systems through that one single API, maybe a common S3 layer, so which can actually access the entire data input and output very efficiently. So that's one of the proposal. And another one is related to the persistent volume in on-prem. Whenever each of the pod actually needs a persistent volume claim, most likely, and if there is a single persistent volume mount is there, but behind under that, if you have different types of vendors, like say for products or other types, this could actually help a lot and to unify it even for the user and as well as for the admins as well. So more and more logic if it comes into this layer, like to handle different types of data, like cold storage, warm storage, and put some tags like cost and everything. These all could actually help users. So these are some of the things we expect actually this layer could offer in the future. And I'm very interested to see, excited also to see that like how this particular gaps can be resolved, and more to come from the Soda community. So I will be happy to collaborate with the Soda Foundation here. And that's basically my talk about Spark on Kubernetes and the challenges basically for um, storage and compute layer.
Thank you very much, Sunil. Very important talk over here, because I believe there was a question earlier in the day as well regarding this. I hope your question is answered, and thank you again, Sunil, for spending your time.
Yeah, thank you.